Hey, did you know Long's Products is a family-owned janitorial supply with mops, brooms, trash bags, and they even have food service disposables, carry-out plates, and to-goes? Check us out.
All right, Jeff, how are you today, sir?
Hey, I'm good, Jack. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I definitely want to say a good evening to everyone. You guys, I'm Jack, and welcome to Let's Talk here on UrbanCast. Tonight, we are having a very important and necessary conversation about Rapides Parish School tax renewals and a new bond proposal for Pineville. We'll decide. We're going to make this decision coming up Saturday, May the 3rd. And we're joined tonight with Rapides Parish School Superintendent Jeff Powell. Mr. Powell, how are you again tonight?
Hey, Jack, I'm doing good. It's been a busy first day back after the Easter break, but we're doing well.
All right. Before we begin, we want to thank. We want you to know tonight's questions were generated directly from the overwhelming responses that we received through public comments and direct messages to UrbanCast, Mr. Powell. To you guys out there, you spoke, and we are bringing those concerns and questions forward tonight. We encourage you to make sure you like this post, share this post, and encourage everyone to get out there and go vote. Your voice matters. Mr. Powell, before we get started, can you briefly give us a brief introduction of yourself and commit to say, hey, I'm going to come talk to y'all on a regular basis where the folk are listening to you out here?
Thanks, Jack. So if I haven't met you yet, I'm Jeff Powell. I'm the superintendent right here in Rapides Parish Public Schools.
Mm-hmm.
I've been superintendent almost 6 years now, and always excited to talk about the great work going on in our school system. And as I have before, happy to come on and discuss particularly important matters here on UrbanCast and other venues as frequently as needed.
Okay. Mr. Powell, I guess I want to go jump right off into the question because I know you got a hard stop this evening. And we're going to try to get as many of these questions in as we possibly can. And before we jump into the tax renewals and the new bond proposal over in Pineville, I want to go over to the District 62 clarification because we got a lot of comments about it. And for the viewers who may not be familiar, can you briefly explain what the District 62 tax was originally intended to fund? And to many people, it's become a major point of concern, especially among Alexandria residents who believe that the dollars are not being spent the way they were intended to be spent. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'll start with saying, Jack, your Rapides Parish Public School Board meets twice a month, the first and the third Tuesday every month. Our budget is online. Everything related to the bonds, in this particular case, District 62, but also District 57 out there at Woodworth or our Tioga bond, you can follow those dollars and the activities that they were intended to be spent on our website at rpsb.us. You can click, I believe it's your bond dollars at work. And so if anybody ever has any questions about what bond monies are being spent on, they can always be up to date at that website or show up at any one of either the board meetings on the first Tuesday night of the month or the committee meetings, which is where a lot of things are discussed, at the third Tuesday night of the month. So as far as recapping the District 62 bond, I think it's widely known that we went to the voters in 2022 to seek $100 million worth of bonds, more investment in the schools in District 62, which makes up the city of Alexandria, than has been had in over a generation. I do want to remind everybody that the Rapides Parish Public School System has 14 taxing districts. So unlike some other school systems or parishes you may see, where they're a single taxing district that supports everybody. We have 14 different taxing districts when you count the parish-wide as a district as well. There's 13 separate school taxing districts and then a parish-wide district. So for the District 62 bond that was passed in 2022, like I said, it was $100 million split between the Ash feeder system, the Peabody feeder system, and then what was at the time the Bolton feeder system. And so I think the only source of contention that's made it to me that's up to some of the meetings, I don't know if maybe it's a direct message to you guys, Jack.
Yeah,
it was the confusion around the Peabody field house. And so if you go back and look at what we call the Bible of the District 62 bond, what we told voters we were going to spend monies on, that's exactly what we go by. And in that brochure, it does talk about renovations to the Peabody field house. And there's about $1.2 or $1.3 million still in that budget allocated for that. The problem is that once the architect and engineers got down in there to that field house and started making the plans and designs to renovating that, and also got into permitting, trying to permit for it, it is, as I understand it, that the area where the current field house is now considered to be within that drainage path or flood zone for where the drainage is down there. And so the plans that the architects and engineers presented to the board actually called for about a $2.5 million increase to what is still available in that budget. So where we've spent $6 or $7 million or so at Peabody Magnet High, there's only about that 1.2 million left for the field house renovation. So I think that's the only place I've seen that there's some contention there, Jack, unless there's something else that you know about that I'm not sure of. But other than that, I mean, every dollar that the taxpayers have paid or are paying is going directly to what we told them they were voting for. And it's been exciting watching the progress. And I believe we accepted bids for AMMS last week or 2 weeks ago. Huddle, we did the grand opening. You were there. You covered that a few weeks ago. We're waiting on some projects to start. I believe we have some groundbreakings this week at places like Cherokee, and run into a couple hiccups at Arthur Smith with some utilities and things being underneath where the plans were that nobody knew about. But yeah, so I mean, unless there's some other specific questions, again, I just remind everybody you can always follow what we do at rpsb.us.
rpsb.us. All right. So, and any particular tab that they need to dive up under to get directly to it?
Yeah, I think if you go to and I'm not looking at it right now, but I believe if you go to the district side, the district menu tab, there's a little menu item under there I believe it says your bond dollars at work. And when you click that, it'll come open all the different bonds that we have in the works right now. And you can click it and it gives you the most up-to-date timeline that we've gotten from the architect and engineers and expenditures and all of that stuff right there, including all the documents that we used when we were out speaking with the constituents prior to the voting.
There is a concern. I know, since the original bond was approved and all that kind of good stuff, we've had some school realignments, and I might not use the right term, so don't beat me up too bad on that, but we've had some realignments, and for example, Phoenix, the Rapides, Academy, and into kind of like the Bolton system. The Bolton students moving over to a lot of Bolton students moving over to Peabody, and some other issues with some of the other elementaries. And some folks say that the dollars that were originally allocated to those particular schools didn't follow the kids into the new environment that they went into. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so I want to be sure not to confuse you. You're talking about two different funding sources. So first of all, back to the first question that you asked, we have to do with the bond dollars what the voters voted for, right? So while some changes and I like your word realignment of schools and things happen after that voting, well, that doesn't change what those bond dollars were to be spent on. In fact, a lot of constituents came to a board meeting when after the bond passed, we did make a proposal to do some other school closures or consolidations, and people very much so spoke that no, we voted for these bond dollars to go where you said they were going to go, so don't mess with that. So we're holding to, just like, again, back to your first question, we're gonna do with the bond dollars what the voters voted for. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to the increased enrollment at Peabody as a result of the realignment, Peabody now gets additional maintenance funds, which is a separate tax aside from the bond, and they get additional dollars allocated based on per pupil from other funding sources. So it's you can't confuse. You got to remember pretty much every dime that comes into the Rapides Parish School Board has a string attached to it, and that money can only be spent for what the intended purpose of it is. And some of that does follow the child, and we do allocations. And I mean, District 62 is the largest taxing district we have aside from the parish-wide. And so, the maintenance taxes for District 62 are divvied up to schools based on their enrollment and based on size and things like that. So, again, all of our budgets are public information. Anybody can come and see those and or for sure reach out, and I can give you any details you want about what each school's allocation is based on their enrollment, their maintenance allocation is, all of those different things. There's nothing, that is not available to the public that we can share with you.
Another concern that a lot of the voters talk about out there, Jeff, is they would wholeheartedly support the renewals if there was clear oversight, like some form of a public dashboard, detailed spending breakdowns and different things. So one of the concerns, I know you said that, hey, we have some information out there on rspb.us, but what concrete transparency measures are you committing to, as we move forward to help make sure people understand what their tax dollars are going to be used for over in 52, the Poland, and the other district that's getting ready that's asking for a renewal?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. And oftentimes we hear that comment, particularly from those that are just anti-tax, no more taxes, don't tax, don't do this, not until we see exactly where our dollars are going. And so the first thing I would say to that, Jack, is come around to our schools. I think the public school system is one of the few places that on any given day, you can drive up to any campus and see the return on investment that you're making for your schools. So for those that want to see the line item budget, again, we have to have an annual budget approved by the school board. We do a hearing where that budget is out in the public domain for, I think it's 30 days. By law, this is required. We receive any comments or any suggestions based on those during that time period, and then we present the budget to the board for approval. When you talk about each individual school's maintenance taxes, our principals get a breakdown. I believe it's monthly, or at the very least quarterly, but I think it's monthly, of exactly where their maintenance dollars have gone. I think if for those that want more information, that's not one we typically add a link to on the website, but I think that's easily done. If people want to see exactly where schools are spending their money every month from the maintenance, it's every plumbing pipe that needs to be fixed, every water fountain needs to be fixed, every light bulb needs to be changed. All that's charged to individual school maintenance taxes. But again, I think the biggest point, Jack, that I would like to make regarding, and this is any public school system, that is one of the places where you can go. The doors are open. Every day the schools are open. You can see where the tax dollars are being spent. And if you haven't checked out John Fleming's new website for K-12 transparency, we've had to upload tons and tons and tons of documents and contracts and financials to that website. I'm not sure what the genesis of all that was, but Just like one of your commenters that keeps commenting about my salary that he's got extremely overly stated. It's just not truthful, especially when it's all public information that you can go to John Fleming's website. It's got every superintendent's salary. It's got every, the contracts at every school board. You can punch in Rapides Parish School Board. You'll see everything that our board approves on an annual basis right there. And I believe they've said that that's now going to be updated quarterly. So now you'll have two sites to go to. And look, the point about more transparency or more detail, anybody wants to give us suggestions on specifically what exactly they would like to see. But the way you consume information, Jack, may be a little different from the way I consume it. The way somebody else wants to see it or say, it doesn't mean that anybody is trying to hide anything, but we have very specific state reporting guidelines that we have to follow. Our chief financial officer is, as far as I'm concerned, the best in the business. She sits on multiple boards and government finance boards and has chaired many of them. And so I can assure you, if somebody's got a question that they feel like is not getting answered, all they got to do is reach out, and we will provide that to the best of our ability.
A ton of the voters, Jeff, and this is a good, I guess from what we see, in the comments that people are making, it seems to be the big issue is between the parish-wide tax initiatives in comparison to Pineville, Ruby Wise, and Poland. It seems like there's an overwhelming support for those three. The big issue, and there may be some other, some others that might have an issue, but it seems like there's an overwhelming support over in Pineville for, their new tax and the Ruby Wise and what have you. But with the parish wide, when people are really concerned, and I know you talked about, like, we had the opportunity to tour Peabody's field house. And the upkeep over there, Jeff, it just I had the opportunity to tour Peabody and see the facilities over there, but I got feedback coming in from over in the Buckeye area, down in the Oak Hill area, where people were very concerned with facilities in those areas, as well as being, as it relates to the facilities being upkeep, the upkeep on it and all that kind of good stuff. So, when we went over to Peabody, there looked like a lake out by the field house, and it just seems like it's decades of neglect at the school. And that's kind of what I heard over in the Buckeye area. That's what I heard down in Oak Hill, and we're seeing it right here in Alexandria. So why do you think, the rural area, the inner city area are saying that there's some serious neglect on the schools, but now when you get over to Pineville, people over in Pineville, Tioga area, they say everything is okay. And I think that's where some of the issues are coming. And why do you think we had that as an issue?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I love the way you framed it, Jack. So obviously the same school system is operating the Tioga schools and the Pineville schools, as well as the Peabody schools and the Buckeye and the Oak Hill schools. Right, it's the same school system. It's not separate school systems. And so I do think it's important for people to understand that there is a system and a process for maintaining buildings and making sure that things are addressed. And that system includes somebody at schools putting in work orders, those work orders getting assigned to appropriate personnel who either work for the school system or assigned contractors from third-party contractors from outside the school system. So, we support our principals and our custodians in making sure that when they put a work order in, those things are addressed as they can be. Now, again, everything comes down to the amount of funds that are available in order to address things. There's no situation where things like the Peabody Fieldhouse should have gotten to the status that it was in the day that you went and looked at it. Just like there's no reason for the Ash baseball field house to have gotten to the predicament that it was in. And when those things were brought to the district's knowledge, they were addressed immediately, the very next day. So, I think people need to understand that there is a system and process for addressing needs. We're in the business of keeping our students and our employees safe. Jack, we have 22,000 students. We have 3,200 employees. And we are tasked with keeping those students and employees safe and working in a clean environment and things like that. And does it mean that every process and system is followed to a T every single day? Well, if it was, we wouldn't have those kind of issues. But it's not because the district, favors one area over another. We're overseeing every group. So again, the same district that oversees the work at Tioga and Pineville is also overseeing the work at Buckeye and Oak Hill and Glenmore and all the other areas as well.
So there is a real issue there, if you're making the observation. And so, as we moving forward, we can only, see where we are, and how do we ensure that we make sure that the facilities at the central office, and they look immaculate at the central office. How do we make sure that same spirit rolls out to our schools in the rural and urban areas?
Yeah, and that's where we provide support for our custodial staff as well as our principals and administrative staff on, how to early detect, make sure that somebody's walking the campus every single day, make sure as soon as they see something, particularly small things, when you see something, when the air is not working in a building, like we need to know ASAP or a room. So it's this process that has to be followed. But again, when you have as many people working in these areas as we do, having people check in on every area and make sure that they're following the protocols. It's this constant thing. You've worked in the business world, Jack. You've got some experience with that. You just got to have the right systems in place to make sure that everybody's following all the correct protocols to make sure it happens. And look, when we're talking about the parish-wide maintenance renewals, and I've read through the comments that you're talking about. Again, I don't have access to the direct messages you may get. But what I want people to understand, particularly those that are in the anti-tax mindset, and look, to some degree, I think a lot of us are don't want to be taxed anymore. But we also need to understand that we do like to have roads to drive on, and a cornerstone for every community is a strong public school system. And when you look at the literally historic academic achievement that the Rapides Parish Public Schools have made over the last few years, when you look at the continued growth that our students and our teachers and our community is having on the academic realm, it should be celebrated. But a necessary component of that is our facilities. And the two renewals that are on the ballot for this Saturday are specifically related to the operation of the school system. Between the two renewals, it's about $11 million worth of annual revenue. And the majority of those dollars are being spent on the utilities for the schools. I mean, whether you realize it or not, the utilities for the 42 schools plus the other buildings that we have cost us somewhere around $7.5 million a year. So you got $11 million in renewals, and $7.5 million of it's going towards
city utilities.
Well, look, I'm just going to say utilities.
Well, no, honestly, Jeff, I can only tell you, I remember when the new financial system was rolled out with the Rapides Parish School system and the student information system. I was part of those teams, directly responsible for the student information system. So I know you guys have the ability to, you have those reporting requirements of fund accounting and all that kind of good stuff, and you have those abilities over there. So and I'm kind of aware of that, man. But if I know we're getting short on time and you got a hard stop, Jeff, coming up on Saturday, we can have a day where all of the taxing measures pass, or we can have a day where certain things don't pass. Give us your take on, if we run into a situation, if everything passes and everything is good, and and although you have a lot of comments that are out there, some of them are not, I don't know if they are all just saying, hey, I'm anti-tax, because actually when we did our analysis on the comments, there were a significant number of people that talked about transparency, and therefore, if the transparency is there. So, if everything is good and as we moving forward, how do we begin to make sure that the public know that these dashboards are out there where they can go take a look at, or if we need to put something in place, what can we do to just make sure that things are even more transparent at the end of the day? And then also ask the question, if we have something that failed, mainly the parish-wide renewals, if they were to fail, what's next? What happens?
Yeah, so I'll answer both parts of that. And look, I'll stay on to answer any specific questions here, Jack. But let's talk about the word transparency. That just is a word that everybody throws out. And most of the time, everybody's saying somebody is not transparent. So, anybody that wants to reach out to me, directly, very easy to get in touch with me. Jeff.Powell@rpsb.us. What is it that you don't think is available for your viewership or your participation in, so that we can provide that in a more meaningful format? Like the one thing that has come to my attention is those monthly maintenance reports that we send to principals. I think that's something that we can easily put on our website. And again, I would argue that the public school system is one of the most transparent public entities that you're going to come across. And, I get it. There's reasons some of these politicians are pushing for more transparency in government. It's, so come and look and see exactly what your money is going to with the school system, because, I do want to talk about that parish-wide, those two parish-wide maintenance renewals again, kind of going to your second question, Jack.
Mm-hmm.
About $7.5 million is spent on utilities. So there's some transparency, right? Mm-hmm. We roll through in our 200 plus buses that are running every day. We roll through about 2,000 gallons of diesel every day. Okay. So you think what is diesel right now? $2.75 a gallon, something like that. So you do the math on that. Every one of our maintenance employees, one of those taxes, the smaller one that's a little over $2.5 million, is specifically for maintenance personnel, maintenance vehicles, the insurance on those vehicles, and the supplies and materials that they may need in other areas. So that is, and all that's on our website. That's in the information that we've put out there. So when you talk about transparency, then you just tell me what other format anybody wants it in, and we'll do our best to accommodate, in a reasonable way. But when you ask the question about, okay, what's at stake? What's at stake, Jack, if this $11 million worth of revenue is not approved? Well, I mean, we still got to pay our utility bills, right? We still got to provide transportation for these students. So that $11 million has to come from somewhere. And, at this point, it would have to come from some other part of the budget. So if there's a resounding vote of no Saturday on these renewals, now, again, we intentionally put these measures on a ballot where we can put them back on before they come off the books if need be. But what we would have to start doing immediately is figuring out where we're going to save $11 million. I did some math today, Jack. $11 million would be about 160 employees, that the salary of 160 employees, because 88% of our general fund budget is for salaries and benefits of employees. So if that $11 million is not there, then that's what's at stake with it. You're talking $7.5 million utilities, 2,000 gallons of fuel every day. So, if somebody wants more information, all they have to do is reach out and look. I get it. There's some antitrust, or some people want to see, but I promise you, if you come to our monthly board meetings, if you come to our committee meetings every month, you will see exactly what's going on with the money, with the resources, with the people, and the hard work that's taking place in Rapides Parish Public Schools.
Well, again, Jeff, I just want to make sure you understand, we did our analysis on the questions, and we based the questions on what, the comments that were out there. And again, some were, obviously some people are anti-tax and some people are transparency, but I believe a lot of the ones that that talked about being transparent, it appeared that they were genuine in their statements and different things.
Yeah.
That. So I don't want to just shut them away. I think their concerns are real. And
and I don't want anything that I've said to sound like I'm shutting them away. All I'm asking for from the superintendent's chair, if there's a way that somebody thinks we could be more transparent, then please let me know specifically, because we want you to see where your tax dollars go. We want you to see the benefit of your tax dollars. Okay.
Well, before we get out of here, Jeff, was it anything there, Mr. Powell, that you'd like to say? Because I know you had that 30-minute, you got a family obligation, and I want to try to respect that. But if there's anything else that you would like to say before we get ready to close out of here, go. You have the floor, sir.
I appreciate it, Jack. I just appreciate the opportunity to come in and try to make sure that we're talking, truth and facts about the work that's getting done. As we always are, we're very open to honest dialogue. We talk about engaging in productive dialogue around a shared vision for our district. And for almost 6 years now, we've talked about the concept of being better together in the work that we do. And I think the results are speaking for themselves, as you've seen the biggest impact, the biggest investment in our physical buildings than you've seen in over a generation. You've seen the highest academic achievement, the outputs that have come from our students and the hard work of our teachers and other employees, community coming together. A school system has to be built on trust of the work that's taken place. And I do think that over the last 6 years, there's been a lot of trust built in the hard work. I mean, when you think about the principals and the work that they're putting in, you think about their leadership teams, as well as everybody from the school food service workers, the maintenance personnel, the nurses, the bus operators. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the people who, bust their grits every single day to make sure that our children are taken care of, that our community is strong and thriving, and we're being able to attract the business and industry that's coming into Central Louisiana like never before. And some of that is because now we're seeing some tremendous work being done in our school system. So, I'm always appreciative of the hard work. I know that, we can get lost in debates and things like that when there's some confusion about where something may be going. But at the end of the day, we've got $100 million worth of investment taking place in District 62 schools. We've got another $25 million being invested in the Tioga schools. We've got another $12 million or so in the Woodworth and LeCount schools. With votes Saturday, we'll have some more investment going into the Pineville schools, but we have to keep these maintenance renewals on the books. The parish-wide maintenance renewals, we were looking it up today. They've been on the books for at least 30 years. And while there's obvious need for us to continue to make improvements in our schools, we can't do it without the funds there. So again, I just appreciate the opportunity to come on, Jack. I appreciate you reaching out and giving us an opportunity to talk about the facts and the issues surrounding it. And again, I strongly encourage anybody that would like to have more dialogue around this to reach out. Let's have conversation about it. Jeff.Powell@rpsb.us. I'm happy to engage in productive dialogue around the shared vision for our district.
All right. Mr. Powell, I definitely want to say on behalf of our team, thank you for taking the time to address these important issues tonight. To our audience out there, I definitely want to say thank you guys for engaging with us and making sure that we're the most engaged media platform outlet in Central Louisiana. And I also want to say a very special thank you to our supporters, Sattler's Towing, Long's Product, and legendary Kung Fu and Tai Chi. Your sponsorship, help us to facilitate these type of conversations that are definitely needed within our community. And so we definitely say thank you to them. And to everybody out there, I definitely want to say, Election Day is on Saturday, May the 3rd. The polls open early on Saturday morning. They close about 8 o'clock. You have that choice to make your voice heard and go vote. Again, this is Jack with the UrbanCast UrbanCast Let's Talk Show. And again, I want to say good night to you guys. Tomorrow night, before we get out of here, tomorrow night we got a very interesting, very heartfelt type of story that's going on. We're going to be talking with one of the families that were impacted by death of an employee at the Hunts Plywood plant over in Grand Parish. So if you guys can chime in on tomorrow night at 7:00, we'll be talking to that family. And information about it will be coming up here shortly. Again, Mr. Powell, I want to say thank you for being with us tonight. If you can just hang on in there, I'm going to go ahead and end this stream, sir.
Thanks, Steve.
Hey, did you know Long's Products is a family-owned janitorial supply with mops, brooms, trash bags, and they even have food service disposables, carry-out plates, and to-goes? Check us out.